everybody. Welcome back. Happy Sunday. I hope you're all having a great first day of the new daylight savings timing. It is pitch black outside here in the Raleigh, North Carolina area at 7:01 p.m. So that was it's been throwing me off a little bit all day, the darkness early, but here we are. So I hope you're all doing really well. I am really excited to talk about our topic tonight because we have made it through November 1st, which for folks in the admissions world and seniors and parents of high school seniors, this is a big day. So November 1st is a really big deadline in college admissions world. It is probably the most common application deadline for schools who have early action deadlines. So a lot has to get done by that November 1st date, and we have made it and everything is in, and that's really exciting for all of our students and their families. So I thought it would be helpful to talk about now what, right? We focus so much on building up the college list and figuring out what you need to be competitive and then getting all those applications in. And now they've been submitted, but there's still more to do. So I wanted to talk about that tonight. So again, I am Gina. If you are new here, I'm with Advantage College Planning. I like to share information every few weeks about the college admissions process and application process to really demystify and de-stress the process. And throughout these live events, you can post questions in the chat box. You can let me know where you're tuning in from. You can let me know what year your students are. That's always really helpful. Tonight's information will be most relevant for seniors, people who've just submitted their applications. But for younger students, it's always really helpful to know that this is what's coming next. So posting in the chat, using those emojis and the little response buttons, let me know the sound's coming through, everything's working. That's always super helpful on my end. Also, as questions come up throughout our conversation tonight, please put them in the chat as well. I love to hear your thoughts, and I'm always really happy to answer questions. So let's jump in and get started. The reason why I thought this would be a really important topic is because I think sometimes families don't realize there is a lot that you still have to do now that you've submitted your applications other than celebrate. So after the applications are submitted, there are eight more things that you really need to be doing. Back in the day when I applied to college, I just mailed in my application and sent some good vibes up to the universe and hope for the best. But these days, students have a lot more to do. So the very first thing that they are going to need to do is set up their application portals. So again, unlike when I applied to college, everything now is digital. So in some ways that makes it easier. In some ways, honestly, that creates more work for your student. So for each school that they apply to, after they submit their application, probably through the Common App, they are going to get an email back from that college in a couple of days, sometimes up to a week, that says, "Hi, student name, we're really excited that you've applied to our college. Your next step is to set up your application portal." And they will give your student their username, which is usually their email address, but sometimes it's not. And they will give them sometimes a temporary PIN or password to use and a link. They need to set up these portals. If you are busy and you can't stay until the end of this live and you could only stay for the first 5 minutes, that is the biggest thing you need to know. They have to set up these application portals for every single school that they apply to. And the reason for that is because, number one, that's how they're going to make sure that their application is complete. Number two, that's where they're going to see any other opportunities the college is offering them, scholarships, etc., which we'll get to. And number three, unlike when I applied to college and the envelopes came in the mail, this is probably how your student is going to find out what their admissions decision is it's going to be posted in this portal. So if they don't ever set the portal up, they will not know what is happening with their application. And if their application remains incomplete because they didn't know that a piece was missing, then they're just never going to get a decision from that college and they aren't going to know why, right? So it's incredibly important that they're setting up their application portal. So that is by far number one. What I recommend doing after the students set up the portal is with all of our students, if you're already working with Advantage College Planning, we, within the program that we use, Custom College Plan, there is a keychain, and I have all of my students link their portal URLs in that keychain. They can save their passwords and usernames if they want to. I recommend it. They don't have to, but they have to link, they'll put those portal links, because what will happen sometimes is students will create the account and then they won't save the link. And then we have to go back in consistently and be checking these portals, and then they can't find the link. And then we spend 10 minutes per school just trying to hunt down the link in their email. And it's a huge waste of time, so inefficient. So after they set up the portals, if you're not working with us, like, use a Google Doc, bookmark it, on their Google page, whatever is easiest, but save the URLs. All right. So number 2 is you need to ensure that the materials are received. So after your student sets up their portals, they have to make sure that the college has received everything that they need. That could include a transcript, test scores, recommendations, any other additional forms, something called the self-reported academic record, which we'll get to. So when the student logs into the portal, typically they will show the student all of the different requirements that have to be submitted. And then next to each requirement, there will either be a red X or a green check. We are looking for the green checks. So if there's a green check all the way down, you can feel confident that the college has received everything that they need for your student. If your student applied right before November 1st, right, like October 30th, it's possible they could log into their portal today and see that their transcript is missing or their recommendations are missing. And then they'll go to their school counselor on Monday, and the school counselor will say, "We submitted all that stuff." That is probably true. So the colleges are receiving tens of thousands of documents all at once that they have to sort through and manually link and make sure everything gets linked up to your student's account. So it could take a few days for all of that linking to happen. So this first week, it's okay if you're not seeing things linked, as long as the school counselor says it was submitted. If by next week for your November 1st applications, documents still aren't linking, then you might want to check in with your school counselor, check in with the college, just kind of make sure that everything's okay. But if anything is missing, you do want to try to get it in, follow up on it as soon as possible. Most colleges will have a materials deadline, there's the application deadline, which is when your student had to hit submit on the Common App. And then there's the materials deadline, which is when everything else needs to come in other than the application, the transcript, the recommendations, the test scores, etc. So just be mindful of those. Usually colleges will give you 1 to 2 weeks after the application deadline to get things in for your materials deadline. Some colleges, everything had to be due by November 1st. So just keep an eye out for those. The next piece that you might have to complete within the portal, you might see something called the SRAR, which is the self-reported academic record. We love acronyms in higher ed. I say it all the time. This is another one. So some colleges and universities will require students to obtain a copy of their transcript, an unofficial copy, and then transcribe the entire transcript into this third-party platform called the SRAR. And then the college will use the information from the SRAR to review the student's academic profile. And so again, they're going to need that information by a specific date. And so have your student be mindful of that. If they see this in their application portal, they need to get this done as quickly as possible. They may need to request a copy of their transcript from their school counselor, or they may need to order a copy online, which can take a day or two. So just make sure that they have a copy, a most updated copy of their transcript showing all of their grades up through the end of 11th grade, showing their 12th grade classes, and then they'll be able to fill in the self-reported academic record. Again, if you are one of our clients, we are already doing this probably with your student, but if you're not working with us, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. All right, number 4, submit university honors or scholarship applications. So way back in number 1, right, when I said, oh, you have to set up these portals because you don't want to miss anything, this is something you could miss. So Sometimes application portals are pretty straightforward and bare bones. Sometimes application portals turn into kind of like an Easter egg hunt. So you want to click around, right? I tell my students, be curious, click on stuff. What else is in here, right? What other opportunities are popping up in this portal? Because you don't want to miss anything. At some colleges, once you've submitted your application for admission, they will open up other opportunities that you can apply to. Sometimes those opportunities are just given to everyone. Sometimes the opportunities are specific to your student, either because they indicated a certain major on their application, or maybe because of they meet certain GPA and test score minimums that could qualify them to be eligible to apply for certain opportunities. But you may see those in the portal, and then that would be an additional process that your student would need to complete, again, by another certain deadline. So that could be for a scholarship, that could be for an honors program. A couple important things to note here, though, is in my family with my kids, we have a rule that is, just because it's on your plate doesn't mean you need to eat it. And right now my kids are really young, and so that's quite literal, right? It's just sometimes something gets put on your plate at dinner or at a restaurant, and either you're full or you just don't like it. Just because it's there doesn't mean that you have to eat it, right? As they get older, we'll continue to take that and make it a broader analogy for life, right? Just because something's presented to you doesn't mean that you have to take that opportunity for whatever reason, right? So as your students are going through the portals, there may be a scholarship opportunity or there may be an honors program opportunity, and they may look at it and for whatever reason say, I just don't think this is the right fit for me. And that's also okay. Right now, students are getting really caught up, in like the frenzy of it all. But sometimes I'll work with a student and I'll say, okay, you've been given the opportunity to apply for this honors program. And they feel like, well, if I was given the opportunity, I have to take it. Not necessarily. Let's do some research. What does it mean to be in the honors program at this college? At some colleges, the honors program doesn't come with a scholarship. There are some universities that you have to pay to be in the honors program. Okay. There are some universities where the honors program is like a really close-knit cohort. And there are other universities where basically it just means you're taking a lot of really hard classes, like high school, right? So that you can get an award at graduation, but it's not like doing anything for you, right? Some honors programs are really research-based. And if your student's not interested in research, that's not a great fit. Right? So just because something is presented doesn't mean you have to do it. Be really thoughtful. Think about, is this an opportunity that I want to take on? Is this additional work that I want to do to submit this application? But at the very least, review those options and make sure you don't miss anything. Next one is make sure that you are submitting the CSS profile. So now let's switch into financial aid. So the CSS profile is a financial aid form that some colleges or universities will require in addition to the FAFSA. Okay. The CSS profile is not required by every school. And actually what I'm going to do is in the chat, I'm going to go to the chat. I have nobody putting anything in the chat yet. I got one little thumbs up, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to say CSS profile schools. And I'm going to put that in. And then you all let me know when that comes through on your side, if you can see that. Just give me a thumbs up or let me know if it came through. So if you are wondering if any of the schools that your student has applied to require the CSS profile, here's a link. Oh, great. So perfect. Thank you, Dana Murphy. It came through. So you can click on that link and you can see if any of the schools your student applied to require the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA. It's typically some highly selective schools, mostly private schools, some public schools like UNC Chapel Hill, for example, is the only UNC system school that requires it. The CSS profile is open now. So if you have a student who applied to, let's say, Drexel in Philadelphia, they're a CSS school. So if your student applied for that November 1st deadline for Drexel, you'll want to try to get that CSS profile submitted to them sometime in the next couple of weeks. I believe November 15th is their priority date for the students who applied early action. And what that will do is that will enable them to give you a financial aid package, right around the same time your student might be getting their acceptance letter, which is really helpful. So highly recommend looking to see, do you need to submit the CSS profile? If so, for which schools? And that is something you can actively start working on right now. So you can go ahead and get that in. The next thing that you'll want to work on is the FAFSA. So the FAFSA, another acronym, is the free application for federal student aid. And so I'm also going to put that in here just as a link so that you can have access to that. The FAFSA can be submitted to all colleges that you apply to, and it can be submitted all at once. In order to submit the FAFSA, you as a parent will need to have an account, an FSA, Federal Student Aid ID number. It's kind of like your account number, right? Your account profile. And then your student will also have their FAFSA ID. So 2 separate FAFSA IDs. But then you'll log in with your student's FAFSA ID, and the student will list all the colleges that he or she is applying to in the FAFSA. You will be able to pull in your tax information from 2023 taxes if you have a current high school senior. And then you will be able to submit that FAFSA for free to all of the schools that you are applying to. The FAFSA is not yet open. CSS profile is open. FAFSA is not. So FAFSA will open around December 1st this year. You can create your ID now. You can create your accounts and have that all set, but then you can't submit FAFSA until after December 1st. So something to just kind of start working on, get your accounts all set, and then when it opens on the 1st, you'll be good to go. But colleges typically process financial aid award letters in around the order that they received the FAFSA. So the sooner you get that information in, the sooner it's likely that you will receive a financial aid package for any colleges that your student is admitted to. So sooner you get the information, the better, as far as I'm concerned. All right, number 7, thank your recommenders. Remind your students to do this. So letters of recommendation take a lot of time to write. Teachers and other people who are writing these, coaches and bosses and mentors, they're putting a lot of time and effort into this really important part of your student's application. And from my days of reading applications and letters of recommendation, I know how impactful a really strong letter of recommendation can be. So highly recommend your students, send a thank you, whether it's an email or an actual handwritten note, but just thank the people for spending that time and supporting them on this leg of their journey, because that's a really big deal. And it does take up a lot of their time. They're not paid extra for it. It's not something that they technically have to do. They could say no. So I always just want to send out a lot of love to the teachers who are taking that on. Really, really appreciate that. Last but not least, number 8 is continue checking your email. So I know students are checking their email already, but during the college application season, they're usually a little bit more on it. But sometimes after all the applications are in, they feel like, I'm good, and it falls back off. This is not a good plan. They need to keep checking their email, because this is how the colleges will be keeping in touch with them. Their portals and the email. If something's missing from their application, your student's going to get an email. Possibly if your student's being given an opportunity for an additional scholarship that they could apply for, it's coming via email. I had a student a couple of years ago who, and I don't usually recommend students do this, but he and his parent decided it would be best for him to set up a whole new email address only to use for college. And the reason I usually don't recommend people do that is because usually the students don't have that email set to their phone. And so then they forget about it. And that's exactly what happened with this student. He never synced it up to his phone. And so once all of his applications were in, he kind of just forgot about that email. And then I was following up with him, how are things going, checking the applications. Well, one day he had received an email from one of the colleges he had applied to, a really selective college, that had emailed him about setting up an opportunity to interview for their most prestigious scholarship that would result in a full ride if he is awarded the scholarship. And the deadline to reply if he wanted to interview for that scholarship was the day that he logged into the email to check it. So he would have completely missed that opportunity, right? If he hadn't checked that email. So that's just one example that like gives me heart palpitations to think about, right? It's an opportunity you don't want to miss. And so they have to keep checking their email, look to see open the emails. Did you get an email from the colleges you've applied to? Did you open them? What was the call to action? What do they want you to do? Sometimes it's just to inform you about a new program or something cool they have going on campus. But most of the time, if it's from admissions, there's going to be a call to action. They want you to submit something. They want you to visit campus. They are reminding you about financial aid, etc. So keep opening those emails. All right. So bottom line is your job's not done yet. I'm really sorry, but your job's not done yet. So you got your applications in, students, and that's amazing. And I'm so happy about that. But there are just a few more things to do. If you can stay on top of these 8 things and continue to cross them off of your list, then you really are finishing strong with all of this time and effort and work that you've put in up until this point. If you aren't doing these last bit of things, then you're really leaving some opportunities on the table and not making the most of all of the hard work that you've already done. So at the very least, set up your portal. Please set up your portal. At the very least, have to set up the portal. All right, great. So now let's get into Q&A. So again, there is that chat feature. If you have any questions about applications, next steps, any college admissions questions, I'm happy to answer them. While you are taking a minute to think about those thoughts, in the meantime, I'll let you know that I will be back in 2 weeks on the 17th, and I'm doing an AMA. Ask me anything about college admissions and the application process. So this is a great opportunity not only for parents of seniors if you have questions, but also for people with younger students. I'm going to be talking about a lot of different aspects of the college application process. I know I'll have some questions that people will send in ahead of time, but I'm planning on addressing things like, when should you start preparing for college applications? What factors should you consider when you're picking colleges? How important are extracurricular activities? How should I approach essays, right? Like all those kinds of things I already have down kind of on my list of questions that have already come in, but I'll be taking other live questions from the audience. So really valuable, really helpful opportunity there on the 17th. So hopefully you'll come back and join me. And as a reminder, all of the Facebook Lives are always recorded. They live here on our Facebook page. So if you miss one, or if it was really helpful information, you want to go back and watch it again, that's where you can find it. We also have great information on our website, so advcp.com. You can find opportunities to schedule a consultation with us, but you also can find links to our fabulous podcast and blog, updated blogs, and lots of great resources there as well. So just so you know, that's a great place to find things. Okay, great. Oh, sorry, question came in from Katrina. When is the best time to apply for other scholarships outside those offered by the colleges? That's a really good question. So when it comes to scholarships, first thing I would say, Katrina, is make sure you're maximizing the scholarship opportunities at the colleges that your student has applied to. That is always step one, because scholarships from the college typically are renewable. If they get them once, as long as they stay in good standing with that school, they're going to renew every year. Outside scholarships tend to be a one and done. So they'll get that money for that first year, but then when it comes to paying for the second, third, and fourth year, they need to go back and apply for more scholarships. So after your student submits their application, step one, look in the portal, look for scholarship opportunities there. Step two is look on the college's website. So a lot of colleges will have a separate scholarship portal that students can access either after they've applied, or some of them, it's not until after they've been admitted, but that will have a long list of endowed scholarships that the college has available to their current students. And your student can start applying for those, sometimes as soon as they've applied, sometimes as soon as they're admitted, even before they commit to the college. So definitely start with that. In terms of just more general outside scholarships, I'd say now is a good time, or, once your student has the bulk of their general admissions applications in, then we can shift focus to those additional outside scholarships. So now's a good time. Senior year, after you get your main scholarships in, applications in, is a good time. I find that if students start focusing on those outside scholarships too early, they burn out. There's only so many forms that they can fill out and essays they can write. And I would rather have them use the energy that they have to maximize their opportunities at colleges first, and then apply for those smaller outside scholarships after. How important is it to visit the campus in person after we already applied? Oh yeah, that's a good one. So I would say, if you have applied and you have not visited the campus yet, that's totally fine. If it's a local school and you can get a visit in this fall, great. If it's a school that you're going to have to travel to, then make a plan now that if your student is admitted, travel to that school. Try to aim for the spring when they're doing their admitted student open house, because that's going to give you the most robust experience on that college campus if you have to travel. So, because you don't want, if you have to book a flight, right, you don't want your student potentially enrolling at a school that's a flight away that they've never actually set foot on, right? But also, if it's a flight away or a few hours, you don't want to go just for like an hour and a half tour and then leave. Most colleges are going to offer admitted student open house events on their campus in about March of senior year. And so as soon as your student finds out that he or she's admitted, shortly after that, the college will start sending information about the admitted student open house, and then you can make a plan to go and visit. And so I'd recommend that. But yeah, if it's a local school and you can get in just like a regular campus visit, definitely take advantage of that if you can do that. Awesome. Great questions. Yay. Thanks, guys. All right. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening and a great start to your week. And I will see you back here in a couple weeks on the 17th. Thanks so much. Bye.